Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us here today. I'm looking forward to having the Managing Director of Venture Minerals present to you a company overview. And we also have comments and available for questions, the CFO, Mr. Jamie Bird. After the presentation, there'll be time for questions, and also I'll encourage you to email those questions through if we don't get them answered today. I'm going to hand it over now to Philippa.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for coming to join us. Shareholders, as well as I'm hoping some new investors in there. And what I'm going to try and do, Pete, is share the screen, right? This is slightly in the way. There we go. Right, so we'll take you through the presentation today. And really, we're talking about venture and the fact that we have a new strategy in place with a new board who joined in May of this year, making me the MD. We have recently raised $6 million in addition to the sale of an asset, and we have funding for 18 months. We have an SPP open at the moment too for shareholders to participate in, and then an EGM leading off into approving various corporate activities to move us forward with a brand new strategy. During this time, we've also secured 100% of our primary asset, which is Jupiter, clay-hosted rare earths project based in Western Australia. And the JV partner still retained a 30% interest. We've secured that for about $1.5 million, and we're quite comfortable with that. It should be a leading indicator as to how excited we are about the project. The major objectives that we're focusing on now that we have this funding is primarily getting out the maiden resource estimate in the fourth quarter of this year, not far away. As with all rare earths projects, it's the metallurgy that means everything. So there is metallurgical work underway. That is the primary aim before we release the maiden resource. Then after that, and based on the work that we do in that process, we'll start moving towards the work of a resource upgrade. We've actually announced today that we've got a drilling program underway to target high-grade zones that we've already identified across the 40 square kilometre area of Jupiter, and then a couple of regional targets that we're going to test as well. What's exciting about Jupiter is not just its location, which is within a really well-known mining precinct that's 2.5 hours away from the port of Geraldton on a bitumen highway, which has a gas pipeline running alongside it. And we're just 10 kilometres off that. So really good infrastructure. You've got all the support you'd expect in an area like that. But the grade and the scale are phenomenal. 40 square kilometres is enormous. It's quite hard to get your head around. We'll get into that a little later. And across that, we're seeing 2,000 meter widths, 2,000 ppm parts per million of total rare earths oxide across 20 to 30 meter widths. And that often sits within a broader horizon of about 1,000 meter, 1,000 ppm total rare earths oxides up to 80 meters. Across all of those results, across those intercepts, we're seeing 23% of those fall into those valuable magnet rare earths, which is what people are most interested in. And then unusually for a clay-hosted or particularly the rare earths deposits, we're seeing very low thorium and uranium, so making life much easier as we move forward. It's a little more detail on the acquisition. So it's a share-based transaction that will require shareholder approval for us to get the remaining 30% of Jupiter. This is where we're looking. You can see that most of our projects are sitting in Western Australia, and the portfolio includes historically a number of other assets. We've already sold one of the assets in Tasmania. That's the Riley iron ore mine that returned $3 million to the company, and will return another circa 600,000 when we receive the environmental bond back. And the other projects in Western Australia largely joint ventured or early stage. So the idea when this new board came in was to look at the portfolio and see where we can give the best value to shareholders. Jupiter and the broader Brothers project surrounding it is clearly where we're going to get the most value. It's where the market has responded the best. And the idea is to rationalize the portfolio so that we can put all of our cash flow into advancing that. With that, the idea is to change the company name. That's one of the resolutions up for voting at the EGM that's coming up. And given the history of this company, which is about 20 years, people are a little confused about what it's been doing in the past and whether it worked or not and that sort of thing, which is unsurprising for a company that's been around as long as this has. We really want to give this Jupiter project the clear air to shine. So setting up with a new company name and getting us ready for a new shiny face and off into the future is very much the plan. This is the location. And you can see the port of Geraldton on the left of your screen over there. That's the 2.5-hour drive to the licenses, which are all situated in blue just along there. You can see the gas pipeline running. We're talking about a 6-hour drive from Perth, which by Western Australian standards is phenomenal, and just the 2.5 hours from the port at Geraldton. I'd also like to draw your attention to the 2 green labels on that map, which are the Iluka Rare Earths refinery in Eabba that's being built, and then Linus's Mount Weld project that's just 450 k's from us to the east. That's just a hop, skip and a jump by West Australian standards, and certainly wonderful for us to have access to all of that infrastructure. Zooming in onto the license, you can see the location in relation to that Geraldton Mount Magnet highway that we're talking about, as well as the gas pipeline. Jupiter is the red blob shape in the middle of that. You can get a sense of the scale, start to get that in terms of the amount of tenure we have, which is around 1,400 square k's, and that Jupiter license sitting in the middle of it. We're talking about minimally stocked pastoral leases that this area is known for, and it's flat terrain with very little vegetation. So we have year-round access across licenses that we already control, and we'll undertake some standard heritage clearance as we move along. This is what it looks like. You can see that it's flat, that it's very easy to access, and we're not talking about enormous environmental impact either when you see the terrain as it looks. Discovery story, really recent. We announced the discovery in August of last year, and that was after acquiring the project in May. All but 2 holes in this project, and we now have 22,000 meters of those into this target area, are drilled by us, and the data was viewed by one of our geologists, Angelique Martin. She is a very good little magpie, and she hunted through the existing data, public data, and found this enormous target. And the team went out to test the theory, came up with some wonderful results. All those pink zones are particularly high grade. We're talking over 50,000 ppm meters. And so the initial drilling was largely done on station tracks and that sort of thing. So we minimized the impact on clearing the ground. And the results were so good that we had to move forwards with that quickly. And this is what it looks like now. So those are the holes we've drilled. It's a spacing of 500 by 250 meters. So still really broad spaced across the 40 square kilometer area. And you will see that most of those dots are sitting in magenta, hot pink, right? We know from Barbie that that's a good and exciting color. It also means incredibly high grade in our world. Red on from that is the next grade down, also very high grade, 50,000 ppm. And so we're excited about the scale of this and the grade of this. In terms of getting a sense of that, because 40 square kilometers, sure, it's 8 by 5 k's, it's enormous, but what does that really mean? And the Sydney Cricket Ground fits into that area 754 times. It really is absolutely enormous. This labels are a little hard to read, I recognize, when there are this many of them on a page. That's sort of our top 20 hits. I might just see if I can move that so you can see better on the screen. Oh, don't really know where to put that. There you go. The results are phenomenal, right? And the 2 purple labels, if you have a look at those, we've got, including within those, over 5,000 and 9,000 parts per million of total rare earths oxide. So we're approaching 0.5% and 1% in that area. So we are seeing incredibly high grades. Most of these, or all these intercepts, have got over 2,000 ppm within them. Many of them are over 3,000. So it's those sorts of areas that we're targeting with the drilling program that we're saying we've released today. And it's to narrow down the drill spacing, increase the density so that we have better understanding. We're going to put fence lines in between these, particularly in those areas, reducing the drill spacing down to a minimum of 250 by 250 meters. So that we have a better understanding of the continuity of those high-grade zones. And we'll also get material to do more metallurgical test work on in the process. So and then the regional program is obviously testing in that broader brothers area across the licenses that we looked at earlier. This is really just having a look at some of those fence lines from the side, the cross sections, right? What does it look like? And you are still seeing all the way across what are effectively 7-kilometre lengths. So Sydney Harbour Bridge fitting in 13 times, just phenomenal scale. You're seeing the red and the pink continue in those intercepts all the way through. So we are incredibly encouraged by the grade continuity that we are seeing across these areas, and we're really looking forward to what comes out of the drilling program to improve our confidence. This is a sense of where we're tracking and what it'll look like post the capital raising, which is a 2-tranche raising, the second tranche of which requires approval at the EGM. And post that, we will be able to see the register looking as it stands on that, with North Star Impact Fund coming in for a 5% stake of the company under the placement. And then Lion Selection Group also came in there. They gave us $1 million as well. So 2 cornerstone investors coming in, along with a full institutional base that joined the raising for the $6 million. Really validating the strategy to move forwards with a focus on Jupiter. And I will note that I have recently done a video interview with Hedley Widdop from Lion Selection, who discussed why he chose to invest, or why Lion chose to invest, and largely talking about the potential of the asset, the comfort with the team and the company and the choices, obviously. The fact that they're taking a risk on the metallurgy, so this is jumping early, and our strategy is designed to fund the company so that we can go ahead and do the work necessary, build proper foundational understanding, and then move forwards with that metallurgy. And we pull that off, and we should be looking at a pretty exciting re-rate. So that's the plan. So in terms of cash, we're looking at a total post-SPP with an assumption of $1 million coming out of that, and that is the pre-funding number of around $12 million. Use of funds primarily focused on Jupiter, and then some other working capital. The SPP is open. That closes on the 14th of August. We then have the general meeting on the 22nd of August, and then tidying up of the unmarketable parcels. At the same time, we've provided a share sale facility for that. So having a look at how we are building momentum, not surprising, the share price is capped while we've got an SPP out there, so we're not expecting to see that move until the SPP closes and the EGM is completed. This is a graph from January of this year, and you can see that the market started to respond as we started to release those initial really exciting results on the Jupiter assays. People got a sense that this project really had some scale. We were releasing results that were numerous records. I think people are getting tired of hearing us say we're having yet another record, but it really is quite astounding to be able to do that. So, you know, the choices we've made on titles have been this high-grade result or that high-grade result. It's a wonderful problem to have. And then leading into May, where we appointed Tim Linley as the chair, and following on from that, just a week later, Nick Sinotta, they both offered me the position as MD. I had been a non-executive director prior to that. And we've set this strategy in place to move the company forwards, moving very quickly. There is a lot going on. So Tim's an investment banker, Nick is an engineer, and I'm a corporate person. It's the first time that this board has had an engineer on. It's certainly helped us guide us into some of the decisions we've made as we've looked around the other assets that we've had, namely the ones that we want to let go of because they aren't necessarily in a position to deliver the kind of value to shareholders that we believe Jupiter can. And then Tim and I, who've both been involved in financing projects. And I think as we look at the strategy, this skill set with people who come from a pretty significant, the big end of town, Nick being on the board of Pilbara and Northern Star, and Tim with a background with some pretty impressive banking organizations like Barclays and Morgan Stanley. You understand that this group of people have come into a company with a view to quite an exciting future. And The plans are not to sit still. Now, these are our sparkling gems in the organization. Jamie, our CFO and company secretary, who's on the line with us and will be around to answer questions at the end. He keeps us on the straight and narrow, and very grateful to have him watching all those details. Then Dr. Stuart Owen, our exploration manager, who is responsible for leading this team and does so beautifully. And Dr. Natalie Benici, who supports him as a geometallurgist. So she is mapping out in 3D the mineralization, helping us form that foundational work that will lead into our understanding and improving the ability to do accurate metallurgical test work on the mineralization, because it's tailored to match. We are also in the process of bringing on another PhD, so we've got quite a collection here in the metallurgical space. She is a lovely lady with a PhD from Germany. She's been helping us as a consultant for a while and is now stepping into, or shortly stepping into, a more full-time role. In terms of our peers, we really believe that Jupiter has the potential and all the hallmarks of being the largest clay-hosted rare earths discovery in this country. And if you compare the grade to the major projects that have been leading the rare earth space for the last decades, they are in China, South China. They have an average grade of 800 ppm. We're talking on the low side for us of 1,000 ppm, with those higher grade components in really broad widths of over 2,000 ppm. So the grade is incredibly exciting for us. We have access to infrastructure, second to none, and all the support that goes along with that. And then we're located in a tier 1 jurisdiction, which is certainly an advantage. So where are we at and how are we tracking? We've been telling people that we've got this drilling program underway. That data, that original program, is now all in on the 500 by 250 spacing. That information has been fed into the 3D mapping, which Natalie has been working on across the 40 square kilometers. That, in a sense, is like paint by numbers. We're trying to understand the mineralization of similar groups, put it together so that we can design the metallurgical test work to be aligned with the properties of that mineralization to give us the best results. For example, most companies put their clay-hosted projects, they're trying to put their entire mineral wealth or deposit into solution. We think that might be an expensive process when we're looking at the scale we are. So we're trying to look for the low-hanging fruit. How can we take some of the waste out, which minimizes the cost, before you start putting things into solution? Looking for ways to make sure that the economics are more viable than they would by just trying to jump to that end step, which is put things into solution. So we've got this smart team that are looking at things from a sensible process perspective, with a view to making the best economic decisions as we move forwards. And then all of that information is being fed into the maiden resource estimate, which we look forward to releasing by the end of the year. So we have everything we need, the people, the project, and the price cycle at an extreme low, thanks to the Chinese putting extreme pressure on that. So we're looking forward to taking this project into the future. And yeah, we're very optimistic about where we're going.
All right. Thanks, Philippa. Is anything else you'd like to add there before we go into question time?
I think I'll leave that there, and happy to head into question time, and hopefully stop sharing the screen, and you should just have us on now.
All right, we've got a good group of people here lined up, but I'd like to start with one of the questions that came through earlier, which is more of a broader question about government funding for their strategic critical minerals policy and their outlook. Is Venture able to participate in any of that funding, and what is your plan for that?
Yeah, most of that funding is unfortunately aimed towards companies that are at definitive or financing feasibility stage, right? So far further down the track than we are. There are other options though, trailblazer funding, which Venture has secured previously. So early stage exploration and R&D based opportunities, which we are looking at all of those because they are phenomenal support from the government, and we will certainly take advantage of everything that we can.
The Jupiter area is quite large, Phil, as you've highlighted there, and showing the comparisons with the Sydney Cricket Ground really highlights the scale. Yeah. what is your plan on targeting to really disseminate the information and get to where you think the money's going to make its best impact?
That's a great question. So first of all, rather than taking shortcuts, we were looking at drilling out the whole thing. So we have drilled out the whole thing, and that's looking towards our maiden resource estimate at an inferred level. We didn't want to just focus on high-grade areas before now, because until you've done the metallurgical processing, you might miss out on the best areas. So the drilling program that we're doing now will help us with that targeting, bring down the drill spacing, increase the density so that we've got better understanding of that continuity, which again will feed into our mineral mapping, which feeds into our metallurgical test work. And long term, should we make all of this work, you'd probably be looking at more than one pit in operation at a time, which gives us an ability to reduce the risks potentially and put different processing options and be able to supply different suppliers at the same time. We do have 2 rare earths refineries around the corner, right? We might be able to supply different products to them at different times, depending on the product suite that we're seeing coming out of different areas of the project. So yeah, we're seeing it as a risk reduction potential as we move forwards, and making sure that we've got the foundation to make the best decisions moving forwards is how we're basing the work programs at the moment.
And following on from that question, what would the process or your plans be to work towards a mineral resource and some metallurgical testing?
Well, that's all underway at the moment. So it's not a long time to get it out in the 6 months we've got remaining in this year. So there's a huge amount of work that's been done towards that already. The drilling results that we already have, those are being fed into that. They're drawing up things called wireframes at the moment, which is effectively, if you sliced up a potato into little lines, we're effectively looking at each one of those little lines as slices through that and building a picture so that you can see how the mineralization connects from one of those slices to the next, to the next, to the next, so that you have an indication of the 3D, the 3-dimensional shape of the mineralization under the ground. And that's what the resource estimate maps out. Now, we can't do that without our little acronym of RPEE, which is under the JORC code on page 11, the reasonable expectation that you can actually extract this mineralization. It is at an early stage level with regard to the resource, and in order for us to do that, we have to do some metallurgical test work. So that is underway, and we are looking forward to releasing it. These things don't happen overnight. I've had a few people ask me if we've got a bucket in the kitchen that we're doing some in-house testing. No, bad idea. Not trying that. Using the professionals to do a good job.
I've got a few questions coming in here around the asset sales.
Yeah.
Riley and Matt Lindsay, would you like to cover off on those questions?
Sure, absolutely. And I refer back to the new board. The process with Riley was obviously started prior to the appointment of this board. It's a process that took more than 6 months. And there really was a view that Venture wasn't able to take that project forwards. We've already had a crack at it in the past, and it was a challenging project. It's small, it's very low grade, and there's no potential for the project to be extended. Venture was only able to make margin on the mining aspect. The people or organizations that run those small, low-grade projects really well tend to have the ability to vertically operate, meaning they make margin on the mining, the shipping, the freighting costs as well, because they're involved in that process, as well as the offtake. So they're able to make margin along the way, and Golden Valley, who bought that project, are one such organization, so they're geared to take that forwards. Venture really didn't have a team to take projects mining, and I refer to, we have an engineer on the board again at this stage, which is very helpful in looking at decisions about how you can make money along the way. The other assets, we actually haven't started the process yet. That will take some time. Lindsay has been in the company since it was listed 18 years ago, right? This company has had a long time to try and make that asset work, and it's still quite a long way from any future cash flow. And if we're looking from an opportunity cost perspective, if we've got $1 million and we put it into Lindsay, which is still that far from delivering potential value to shareholders, or we put it into Jupiter, which has cost us $1.5 million to do a drill out of 22,000 meters and provide the information that we need in order to prepare a maiden resource. The opportunity cost starts to make it really a much more simple decision. And I recognize that there are a number of people who have their hopes on that project, Lindsay specifically, because it's been around for such a long time. We will do our best to find the right home for that. That's not going to happen quickly. It's a very specialist sort of asset. And in the meantime, the test work that Curtin is doing, which is research work to establish whether the deeper levels of mineralization, which is not, that's tin and tungsten and boron mineralization, can actually be separated out and processed. That would need to be demonstrated before you could do a resource and complete a study on the work for that level of mineralization, which would be in support of the existing cassiterite mineralization, which is what the resource is on. That's near surface. But at the moment, you wouldn't be able to get a mining license to do an open cut mine there in Tasmania. So the underground component is necessary, meaning that we've got to continue that work, which is being done with that research work, which is being done with Curtin at the moment. But it's a way off being progressed, is what I would suggest.
Okay, well, I think I'll just finish up with a couple more questions here. Philippa, what is the news flow over the next month or two that shareholders can look forward to hearing about?
Lots. At a time in the market where many people are hiding and going into their hibernation phase, because the world is quite tough at the moment. The ability to raise that capital and enable us to move the project forwards means we have started that drilling program. So the high grade components of the priority targeting will be very interesting to see coming through. Then the regional program testing broader areas around the Brothers project, and then metallurgical test work. And by that time, it'll be the end of the year and we'll be able to put out a resource. Heaps going on.
Well, that sounds good. Look for the resource. Now we've got notice of meetings gone out. There's a meeting coming up with a number of things to be voted upon. What is your message to the audience and to shareholders regarding the EGM?
Apology about the 140 pages. Let's start there. I know it's intimidating. 19 resolutions is a lot. I did mention that we've been moving quickly. So look, it's really everything we need to set this company up for success with a brand new name, Critica Limited. And yes, we are going with a Beyonce style, one name wonder, so that we can really stand out in the space. Critica means critical in Latin. So we didn't want to be lost in with everyone else with a many long named, can't remember the company name. So we've gone sharp and shiny. The Constitution to being tidied up, being brought into the digital age and allowed for all the changes that have gone along with the Corps Act. All the changes in relation to the new board. I know there are some termination benefits which have certainly created a little bit of a fluster among some of the shareholders. There is the impression that directors will be able to issue themselves shares whenever they like. That's not the case. It really is just about seeking permission to be able to be entitled to retain what we've already earned. And I know that I've been having discussions with shareholders, happy to continue to do so as we move forwards in terms of more details around that. And Nick and Tim have participated in the placement. That requires approval. Second tranche of the placement requires approval from shareholders to issue those shares. So it really is tidying up an entire package. Oh yes, and then the acquisition of Jupiter. Please let us have the rest of the project. We're really excited about it. And then most importantly about changing the name and the constitution. Those need a higher level of approval. They are special level resolutions which require 75% approval because of the significance of changing names. It just will allow us to leave the legacy challenges in the past and move forwards with a brand new shiny name and give Jupiter all the potential that it deserves. And let's go and see some returns for shareholders.
Well, I think in the 20 years that Venture's been listed, more recently times have changed. The global demand for critical minerals is now a real thing. It's not going away. It will only become a stronger demand scenario for that. And you certainly have positioned the company now for that future leg. You've got some really good cornerstone shareholders in there who have joined the register for this reason. and you've got some really good news flow coming out. It'd be wonderful to see that high-grade resource being delivered at some stage in 12 months' time. What would you leave your investors with a final message, Philippa, as we leave this webinar today?
6 months' time, Pete.
6 months'
It's
time.
coming sooner. It's coming
Yeah.
soon. Please join us on the journey. There is a lot happening. It really is an exciting project. We have set ourselves well up for building the momentum and delivering on this project. So come and join us for the journey.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Philippa, for that presentation. This will be available for all shareholders. We'll mail it out to you. If anybody has any other any questions, please email them through. Philippa's very keen to make sure everybody is informed and will respond. And we look forward to hearing from you very soon in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.